Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to help you get good customer service. You probably know what bad customer service looks like. We've all been there. Maybe you've stood in line at a computer store to return a defective piece of equipment, and the clerk asks you rudely, "Well, how do you know it's broken? Did you plug it in?" Or you've called your phone company to change your service, and when you finally make it through the voice menus to a real person, you get put on hold for 10 minutes. It's crazy, right? We are paying customers, and we get treated like this? So if you've ever felt your blood boil in situations like these, listen up. Let's talk about how to get good customer service. For starters, you have to think about timing. Basically, the busier people are, the more stress they have, and the less time they'll be able to give you. So avoid Mondays. On Mondays, you've got business and frustration that has built up over the weekend, and customer service agents are usually overwhelmed on that day. Also, think about the time of day. If you're calling in to a customer service department or center, do it early. The early shifts are considered plum, so the more experienced and more able customer service reps work at those times. Now, you might think it's their job to serve you. And you're right, it is. But if you can make their job a bit easier, they'll do it better. That starts with having the right paperwork and information ready. If you have to dig in your bag for your receipt, or if you have to rummage through your desk for your account number while the person waits, they'll be frustrated. You know what information they'll ask for, so be prepared. You can not only make their job easier, but you might also make it more pleasant by being pleasant yourself. Some people think they'll get better results if they communicate a sense of urgency and frustration. But in many cases, that backfires. Be polite and friendly, and you'll probably get the same attitude back. Remember that it's a person you're talking to. That person can want to help you a lot or just a little, and the difference might depend on how much they like you. Use their name and try to create a personal connection. Even if you are really irked, maintain a positive attitude. Okay, we've covered how we communicate. Now, let's talk about what we communicate. If you're dealing with customer service, you either have a need or a problem, and you need to be able to explain that need or problem very clearly. Stick to the facts. Describe exactly what happened or your situation. Don't go on about things they don't give a hoot about, and don't give them your life story. What you should do, however, is give them your customer story. Tell them why you bought the product or service. Don't hesitate to say something about the positive aspects of whatever it is you bought. This shows that you've got a balanced perspective. Still, tell them what your expectations and needs are. But remember, don't get too verbose. So, what might a customer story sound like? How about something like this? "Well, you guys came highly recommended by a marketing buddy. I told him we wanted t-shirts for our event that people would keep for a long time, and he said you folks would do a bang-up job. The quality of the shirts is fantastic, but I'm concerned about how the colors look. Our event is in 2 weeks, and we need to make sure these shirts look awesome." That's a much better tack than, We ordered shirts and they don't look good. At the end of the day, you can't expect people to do backflips for you just because you say you've got a problem. So avoid the busy times. Stay calm. Be nice. Make a personal connection. And stick to your customer story. Of course, sometimes your problem has not been solved and you need to complain. That may require some slightly different strategies. Tune in next time to find out. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There, you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to help you get good customer service. More specifically, we're going to learn how to complain properly and get a good solution. It all starts with a problem. You buy a product and it doesn't work right. Or you buy a service and you are not served well. You get frustrated. You paid good money, but you're not getting what you expected. It's time to complain. So you go back to the store or you ring up a customer service line. This interaction could end with more frustration, or it could end with satisfaction, depending on the outcome. So how can you get a good outcome? The first thing is attitude. Always begin with a polite approach. Don't assume that you're going to get bad service. If you plant an apple tree, you'll get apples. And if you plant a positive and constructive attitude, you'll get positive, constructive solutions. Customer service reps deal with a lot of grumpy people, and you might just brighten their day by being nice, and they might reward you for it. Now, your feeling might change. You might feel less positive or friendly if you encounter resistance, but you should always remain polite and professional. Okay, when it comes to describing your problem, there are a few important do's and don'ts. First, explain the problem clearly, including any details that might help the person figure out what went wrong. Don't exaggerate or become emotional. That will only damage your credibility. So it's good to say something like, I have turned the machine on and off 5 times, and each time I get the error code E44. That's clear and detailed. Don't say, I've turned the stupid machine on 1,000 times and it just won't work. Next, you need to highlight your dissatisfaction and that your problem needs to be remedied. In other words, you need to tell the person you are not satisfied and that you need a solution. This might mean communicating your frustration. But you should do it by stating that you're frustrated rather than showing your frustration. That could sound something like this. This situation is very frustrating to me, and I need a solution. Now let's talk about solutions. Sometimes you start the conversation with a solution in mind. You have already decided what will make you satisfied. In this case, you should propose it directly. If you want a refund, say, I would like a refund. Notice that we are still being polite and professional. But sometimes you don't have a specific solution in mind, and you would like the company to give you one. In this case, let them offer something. If you're happy with the solution, great. But if you're not, you need to say so. Often, a customer service agent will start with the solution that is easiest or cheapest for the company, and you won't get anything more unless you ask for it. Sometimes you don't get the solution you ask for, and you're not satisfied with what is being offered, no matter how hard and politely you push. What can you do then? Well, you can try talking to someone else. That could mean calling back at another time. You may find that you get a different attitude and different solutions from different customer service agents. One may be grouchy and unhelpful, while another may be nice and compassionate. Talking to someone else could also mean escalating the call. When you escalate, you go higher up. That is, you can tell the person that you'd like to talk to their manager or boss or whoever is in a higher position. You'll likely have to repeat your explanation, but you might just get a better response. And sometimes you have to keep escalating until you find someone who can really help you. Here's an important reminder. As you go through the process of complaining and trying to find a solution, document everything. When you talk to a person, write down his or her name and when you called. Write down the details of the call, including what solutions you were offered and what you were denied. This can help if you want to talk to the same person again, or if you have to recount the details of your customer service adventure to another person in the company. Now, let's recap. Start with a polite and professional attitude. Explain your problem clearly and ask directly for the solution you want, if you have one. If you let them offer a solution, keep pushing politely until you are satisfied. Talk to someone else if you need to, and write everything down. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to talk to you about giving feedback. Say feedback, and a lot of people will immediately think of a performance review. You sit down with someone you manage and explain what they're doing well and what they need to improve. It's a situation we've all been in, on both sides of the desk. However, feedback is much more than what we do in a structured and scheduled situation. Feedback is an ongoing process, and we give feedback to everyone around us, not just those who report to us. That includes colleagues and coworkers and our managers or superiors. Feedback happens every day between everyone in a company. You might be giving feedback and not even realize it. Every time you let someone know what you think about what they're doing, you're giving feedback. Okay, now let's talk about the kinds of feedback we give. First, there's negative feedback, or criticism, such as, "Joe, I think you need to shorten your sales presentation and work on your delivery. I think it'll be more effective that way." Then, there's positive feedback, or praise, such as, "Tanis, I think your presentation was great. You didn't overwhelm people with information, and the visuals really helped emphasize the key points." But feedback can also be daily reassurance, in which you let people know you're okay with what's happening. Like this, "Yep, looks good," or this, "That makes sense. Let's do it." It's very important to balance these kinds of feedback. You don't have to deliver every critique sandwiched between praise, but be aware of your overall balance. Too much negative feedback can damage a person's confidence and sense of well-being. It can be demotivating, which is the opposite of what we want to do. How do you feel when someone keeps saying, "Well, you could have done that differently," or "That just doesn't work"? Or, that idea is never going to fly. It's very easy to dwell on what people need to improve, but we can't ignore what people do well. And we should tell them about it. Positive feedback can inspire, motivate, and reassure. How do you feel when you hear things like, "Great job," or "I think that looks fantastic," or "Just wanted to let you know, I read your report and it was just what I was hoping for"? Now, good feedback has a few important qualities. It is immediate, direct, and specific. Feedback is immediate when it comes not long after the work or behavior you're giving feedback on. Feedback is useless, or rather annoying, when it comes months after the fact. Feedback is direct when it's delivered to the person who it's intended for. That means you shouldn't get others to deliver feedback for you. It feels disrespectful, and there's a good chance that it won't be delivered in the way you want. And feedback is specific when it includes evidence to support the central idea. An example of specific feedback might be, "Joan, I noticed that some of the personnel files are incomplete. We need to make sure that each file includes signed performance reviews." By being specific, especially with negative feedback, we're giving people ways to rectify the situation. Remember, feedback is about enabling success and producing better results. And to do that, make sure you give a good balance of feedback and that you keep it immediate, direct, and specific. Now, while giving good feedback is not always easy, receiving feedback can be even harder. The important thing is to keep the conversation focused on the work, not on the person. It's easy for the receiver to begin taking things personally. So, just watch your language and be sensitive to the needs of different people. Tune in next time to learn more about how to receive feedback well. That's all for today. So long. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons. And today, I want to help you receive feedback with a positive attitude. Before we jump into the lesson, let me tell you about a really awesome promo we're running for our 7th anniversary. This year, we're going all out and giving away not one, but 2 iPad minis, one to a new premium member and the second to an existing member who renews. Head over to businessenglishpod.com to get started. Okay, now, on with the lesson. How do you feel when you hear something like this from your manager? "Listen, I really need to talk to you about the work you've been doing on that big project." If you're like most people, your heart starts beating a little faster and your mind starts racing. In fact, this is a common reaction to the idea that we're about to receive feedback. We naturally don't like it, but it's important, so we need to learn how to receive feedback constructively. Receiving feedback properly begins with thinking about feedback positively. First of all, if someone is giving you direct and immediate feedback, it's a sign of good communication and a healthy work environment. The alternative is not getting feedback, or getting feedback too late to use it constructively. That's not a good situation. How would you feel if, 6 months after finishing a project, a colleague told you that your boss wasn't really happy with your work? Next, when you get feedback, understand that it's not personal, but about producing better results. Humans have a natural tendency to take feedback personally, but that will only hinder your performance. Focus on the ideas in the feedback, rather than the way the feedback is given, or your relationship with the person giving it. Don't think, "Why is he really telling me this?" or "Why does he have to say it with that tone?" Instead, think, "What exactly is he saying, and how can I use that to improve my work?" Not taking things personally also means resisting the urge to become defensive. Just listen carefully and ask for clarification if you don't understand. Try not to start every response with "but." That's a sign of defensiveness. Now, sometimes it's true that feedback is not delivered effectively. If this happens, be upfront about it. If a manager is constantly criticizing what you do, tell him that you need the feedback differently. Good feedback is specific, so ask for specifics if you don't get any. Good feedback is also actionable, so if it's not obvious how you can use the feedback, then ask how. So, if someone says, "That report really needs some work," you can say something like, "Is there any specific section that you think could be improved?" Now, we've been focusing on negative feedback, or feedback about what you need to do better or differently. And people naturally focus on this kind of feedback. But you shouldn't forget to recognize positive feedback when you get it. Let the praise inspire and motivate you. Build on that positive feedback and learn to apply your strengths in different areas. And if you really feel you don't receive much positive feedback, then ask for it, like this: "Could you tell me what you thought worked really well in the report?" So, stay positive and open-minded when you receive feedback. Keep lines of communication clear, and you'll be able to use the feedback constructively. And finally, pay attention to how people are giving you feedback. Whether you think they're doing it well or not, you can learn how to provide better feedback to others. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to Business Skills 360. I'm Tim Simmons, and I'm glad you could join me for today's show on networking. Okay, back to networking. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to connect computers. This is about business networking, talking to people, making connections. And today we're going to discuss goal setting in networking events. You need to go into these events with a clear objective so that you can make good use of the opportunity. We set goals for everything else, so why not networking? First off, what do I mean by networking event? Perhaps it's a mixer for all business people in your community, or maybe it's a conference where you have the chance to meet people in your field. These are important opportunities, and it is important that you use your time wisely. The fact is, at many networking events, 75% of the people stand around waiting for the other 25% to make something happen. It's important for you to be in that 25% group. Be proactive. You can't just stand in the corner and expect everyone to walk across the room to introduce themselves. So, to be an active and successful networker, it's a very good idea to set goals before the event. What kind of goals? We'll talk about issue-based goals and human-based goals. Let's start with issues. Before the event, sit down and give some thought to your current situation. What issues are you currently dealing with in your business or work? Are you facing specific problems or obstacles that you need help with? Do you have certain needs? Write these things down, then rank them in order of importance. For example, Your list might say, Number 1, our project meetings lack focus. Number 2, our computer servers are unreliable. And number 3, my department is spending too much on office supplies. Great. It's good to have a top 3. Too many, and you'll lose focus. Now, keep your top 3 issues in mind as you head into the networking event. Remember, the goal of your networking is to solve these problems, get help solving them, or simply get some ideas about how to deal with them. You may not meet someone who can actually solve these, but you may meet someone who has encountered them before. Steer the conversation toward these issues. They may help you get over that awkward situation in which you've introduced yourself and aren't sure what more to talk about. You can say something like, So, you folks do a lot of project work. How do you find your meetings? Or, what kind of servers do you run in there? Now, let's think about human-based goals. The purpose of networking is, of course, to build a human network. You talk to people, and your network grows. You talk to more people, and your network grows even more. That's great. But if your purpose heading into a networking event is very general, like talking to people, then how do you know whether you've been successful? Setting specific goals will help you get more done and measure your success, especially if you feel you're not very good at networking. Put numbers to your goals. Set targets, just as you might for sales or other important business basics. For example, perhaps you decide that you will make 3 soft contacts and 1 excellent contact. Or maybe you decide to tell 5 people about your company's new product. Or maybe you aim simply to pass out 10 business cards. Whatever the specific goal is, it will help you focus your efforts. Chatting for 30 minutes about baseball with a former coworker may qualify as talking to people, but it's not necessarily the best use of your networking time. Right. That's all for today. Happy networking. And don't forget to tune in next week when we'll have a look at network maintenance. Fast